Hey everyone, it is a sleepy vlog, which is a code word for my excuse for rambling, usually about things related to comics. This will be no exception, but in a broader sense, I've been thinking about how, there goes the neighborhood, how if anything in life, it seems, now, as I get older, I become more and more convinced of it, anything that's good, any cool time, like the 90s were really cool here in Portland, or cool things going on in comics, superhero comics in the United States became a very cool thing. Music scenes, what have you, if they're good enough, they eventually attract attention that makes them bad. I guess that the whole current kind of DC implosion with their new corporate masters, AT&T, made me think of that. I have friends who used to work at Yahoo who said what a great place it used to be to work, and then it got bought out. I think, was it by AT&T? It might have also been AT&T, and then it became like a hell place to work, and it was its success that attracted the big corporation, or maybe they bought anyway, whatever. It was its success that turned it into a failure. And you have a fun city to live in, and then too many people move there, and all the problems explode. And with superhero comics, they were too successful, and they attracted the attention of big corporations, and those big corporations, I don't know, maybe this is way too pessimistic for me, but I feel like those big corporations are guaranteed to ruin things. That the death of superhero comics ultimately is in the lap of those big corporations and has nothing to do with comic book stores and the way they're run, the age of comic book readers, the comic skate trolls or SJWs ruining superhero comics, or any of the other kinds of things that people want to blame. Ultimately, it's because giant corporations have taken over. And so most of you, if not everyone, has heard a lot of people long before this video came out talking about what the huge layoffs at DC mean and what AT&T is up to and everything. But one podcast I was listening to mentioned, it's really tough on the editorial, but the freelancers don't have to worry. And I thought that person was way off base. Well-intentioned thought, but I think as we see DC trying to meet savings goals set for them by, cut this much of your budget, increase your profits by this much from AT&T, we're going to see them become much cheaper with their freelancers. Plus, there may be less jobs for the freelancers. But I think we already saw, we've heard at DC, we've been hearing for years that DC is better paid than Marvel, which seems shocking because Marvel sells more. But they had a policy of trying to get the best people and pay well to attract and keep the best people. But Marvel had the policy, it seems, of they might have had some top people they paid really nicely, but they also looked like they were going with, in a lot of cases, cheaper artists, people from around the world who didn't have much bargaining power and would reduce the bargaining power of the local artists too. And I'm guessing that the pressure at DC will now be to do the same thing Marvel did and find cheaper freelancers to work for them. I'm guessing, but that seems like an inevitable corporate kind of thing, especially in this international world that we live in, where you can get an artist from anywhere in the world to work for you. And I'm not saying that all international artists are cheap, because DC, who paid better, had plenty of international artists too. And I'm not saying this hasn't been done before, but I think it can be done on a much larger scope and an ever downward pressure on the freelancers. And if there's less books, less jobs available, the freelancers have less bargaining chips. So we'll see. In my fantasies, Image and Oni and Boom and other small companies that aren't owned by big corporations will rise up and fill the void. But that's just kind of my fantasy. I guess this is going to be one of my more negative sleepy vlogs. I seem to be having a lot of negative reactions to things. Because another thing that countering the corporate spirit, we can go on Kickstarter and fund things and go on Patreon and support people. But a lot of the times we don't really know what we're getting or what we're supporting. So I backed this comic, called Octobriana, although it does not say that on the, what does that say? MTSYRY. But it's Octobriana 1976, I think it's called. On the back it just says Octobriana Devil Woman. Oh, here's the 1976 up here. So it's a comic by Jim Rugg that he promoted heavily on his Kayfabe channel. I've really enjoyed the Kayfabe channel, so I wanted to get into the spirit of things. But you can see here it says $10 on the back. But to get this, I had to support at the $20 level. I will eventually get some kind of PDF also for that $20 level. At a $10 level, I could have got just the PDF. And I don't know if this would be worth $10 to most people. I probably would have been happy to pay $10 worth it to support Jim Rugg and enjoy his explorations in comics. But this was very slight. I think it's about 24 pages long, or maybe less. And there's almost no story. It's one big fight scene, and it is kind of cool colors, and some cool panels and everything. But I think I wasn't listening closely to what they were saying we were getting, and I thought I was going to get something much more complete and more fantastic. Maybe I thought it was more like a trade paperback or something, or some oversized kind of thing, a real art book kind of thing that I was getting. I don't hate them or feel like I was ripped off, but I do feel like I've got to be more careful on Kickstarter about what I pay my money for, because you often don't get very much for your money. So this is a lot like reading an issue of Star Riders. Is that what they're called? Star Riders, I believe. Yeah, Space Riders by Zurot. Alexis Zurot, I think is his name. Only Space Riders has more plot, even though it's not very plot heavy, than this does. And I don't know. They're both kind of visually appealing, of course. So there, you've seen every page of Octobriana. And there's only a little bit of dialogue. I guess it takes place in some kind of steampunk alternative Stalinist Russia run by a robot Stalin. Could be a fun idea, could be something that you could really explore, but there's really not much meat on the bones here. So I felt a little stupid for having paid $24 for that. And then, this is not comic related, but I'm really into Gene Wolfe, and for a while one of my favorite science fiction writers was Michael Swanwick. And so I've been following on Twitter some people who do Gene Wolfe podcasts, and one of them just had a link to this, and it was a chapbook, a limited edition chapbook for a what I thought was Michael Swanwick's essays, maybe like a set of essays on Gene Wolfe. And I thought I'd be getting, some kind of fancy chapbook, some real nice item for a fan of both those writers. But what it is, this is number 33 of 100. So I guess in that sense it's collectible, but it's just printed out, I think, on someone's computer printer on cheap paper, where you can see through the page, and it's an interview from one of the podcasts. It's just a transcription of the interview from one of the podcasts, and it's really a total of five pieces of printer paper, threaded together, I think by Michael Swanwick's wife. And yeah, I haven't read it yet. It might be brilliant. I'm trying to remember what I paid for it. It was, I think it was $15, or it might have been $20. So I feel stupid for buying it, for not maybe reading closer to figure out what it was. Collector's edition chapbook, I just pictured something else entirely in my head, and I just went ahead and clicked on it. I've been just buying a lot of stuff online. I've been trying to support, non-corporate things and small enterprises and stuff, and often it feels very worthwhile. But in those two cases, both of which, I can't remember for sure what he made on Kickstarter for this Octobriana, but I think the total was like $75,000 or $95,000. So he did very well. I mean, it might have been a bit expensive to publish this stuff with the unusual inks and everything. I saw him on the, and I still love their YouTube channel, and will watch lots of their interviews and such. But I'll be more careful, especially since I guess I could have just asked my comic shop to get this from Ad House Books for $10, and then I would have got it for $7.50 with my comic shop discount. What was I gonna say? So anyway, I guess you win some, you lose some when you're trying to support people out on the fringe. Although this is, I got caught up in the hype. Now somehow I ended up following on on Twitter, someone who was publishing this comic called Ronald Rump, which obviously is making fun of Donald Trump, and done in the Harvey Comics style, in an almost pitch perfect Harvey Comics style. So Ronald Rump is a cross between Donald Trump and Richie Rich, and it's done extremely well. So he was giving this away free digitally, and then he had a Kickstarter to publish it on real newsprint, and it is real newsprint. And he was charging, I think on the Kickstarter, was he charging $3, or maybe it was $6? I think he was charging $3 if all you wanted was just the comic. And now that the Kickstarter's over, I think he charges $6 for this. But so I was so into this, and if you love Trump, I apologize, but I'm certainly enjoy anything making fun of him. But I was so into this that I kickstarted, I pledged at a very high level that not only got me this copy, I ended up with 2 copies of this, and this is my more beat up copy. And it got me these little prints. I'm not sure if they're prints or hand-drawn sketches. I think they might be hand-drawn. So the actual artist's name is Peter Wolf. For quite a while, he wasn't even saying his name. He was just calling himself Ronald Rump. But Peter Wolf is a very talented and clever, both a clever writer and a talented cartoonist. And so at the highest level of support, or I think it was the highest level of support, I actually got a piece of artwork, original artwork, from the Ronald Rump comic. And I supported this. I wouldn't pay a lot of extra money because I just want to attack Donald Trump, but I do. I've come to really love Harvey Comics. So someone who's kind of keeping the Harvey Comics going in this way just was really interesting to me, and so I really did want to support him with some extra money, and as a bonus for that, I got some original art from the comic. Here, let me find the page. I think it also came with some bookmarks and stuff, which I have at the moment misplaced. This is a comic where, this is a story where Vlad comes to visit, who is obviously Mr. Putin. So I'm tickled pink, and I thought I spent some money, and I thought I got exactly what I wanted, and I'm really happy to hear that he's working on a second issue. I hope he goes on to other kinds of projects beyond political satire, if you can call it that. I don't know if you'd call it political satire so much as poking fun at a public figure. Satire has to have more of an edge and a bite to it, I suppose. I don't know. Or be closer to home. Anyway, I was real happy with that. Oh, right next to him is Steve Rude art in my portfolio while it's out there. I think I've showed this, but quite a long time ago. I'm also, with talking about how things change and aren't the same, the YouTube comics world is so crowded right now. YouTube comics channels. So I don't know and I've been doing these videos for so long, I don't know who's seen what I've already done already. So I wonder, should I repeat certain things? Total random aside. In fact, I wanted to mention that I've been watching this new channel called Bruce and Stephanie Comics. They do a lot of different kind of videos. I like I think it's Friday or Saturday night hangouts, which are a lot of fun if you have the time for a long hangout. And then they do some cool comic book reviews. I think like the top 3 favorite comics of the week, top worst comics of the week sometimes, and some vlog kinds of things and other stuff. So anyway, they're kind of a cool channel. I'll put links below to any of these projects I mentioned, links to any channels. I've also was real excited to see Chad's Attic back. Speaking of the overcrowded YouTube world, back when Chad was putting out lots of videos, there was a lot less people out here in YouTube. But really fun to visit Chad's attic full of comics again. And I nearly missed him in the enormous number of comics videos in my feed. I suddenly thought, oh wait, did I see some Chad's attic there? And I had to go searching for it. And another channel I keep watching more and more of right now, I've mentioned him once before, is 4-Color Commentary, Mark. And he's been continually putting out videos. I don't think too many people have discovered him yet. And if you like my hauls, you'll like his hauls. He's digging in dollar bins and other things and pulling out stuff from all different eras of comics, and it's fun listening to what he has to say about them and everything, because he's a long-time comic book collector and has a lot to say about any comic he gets. So I really enjoy that a lot. So back to things that I've kind of I think also on Twitter, and I don't know how I stumbled into this on Twitter, but I did. And on a whim, I ordered these comics that were, what do they call it? They were from Indie Planet. And they were print-on-demand comics. And if these are really print-on-demand, because it also advertises Kablam digital printing, I wonder if these were printed in a print run. But anyway, there's something someone is calling Atomic Pulp or Atomic Action Comics. Atomic Action Comics and Atomic Pulp. And he is purposefully recreating heroes that would have started in the golden age, and what would they be like if they had continued into the late 1970s, I think. He's trying to give them a look of the late 1970s. And these are really good. I've read 2 of the 4 I've ordered so far. This one, The Mighty Crom, you might say, well, that's drawing on Conan from the Bronze Age. And it is, in a sense. But apparently there was a barbarian character named Crom created by Gardner Fox back in the late Golden Age. So he because there's a specific guy, Christopher Mills, is behind all of this, and he apparently finds these public domain characters and updates them, hires really good artists. So the Mighty Crom is being drawn by Rick Burchett, and the other one that I've read, Rex Dexter of Mars, apparently that was a real thing back in the Golden Age, is these are written by Christopher Mills. They're all written by Christopher Mills. This one's pencils and inks by Peter Grau. And this Rex Dexter, felt like a Silver Age comic, updated to the Bronze Age to me to an extent, and done really well. I really enjoyed this one a lot. I have to say the Crom one left me feeling like, well, this is a good beginning setup, but it didn't rise above but although it's only aiming for the Bronze Age cliches anyway, it felt like a solid but not super exciting episode of Conan, perhaps, but with a lot of little elements that, if they get developed further in future issues, will be really good. And then there are backup stories too. This one had a backup of someone called Cave Girl, also created by Gardner Fox and Bob Powell, who was, I believe, was she originally a Thunda backup character or something like that? Or no, maybe next issue we're going to get Thunda himself. So this is a really interesting project. This one, 600 cents, $6. You compare that to the Octobriana. Now, of course, it's not as experimental, but a lot of time and money has been invested into this. So I actually can't wait to read this one from Sleuth Comics, Black Owl. This one was $5. It's a little bit thinner. But these are thick comics on really nice paper, well colored, well professionally lettered and everything. And the writing is solid. Of course, I've read 2 out of 3, but this one was $5. So, and I think there was some postage charged, but by getting them all together, I don't think the postage was too much. Then another thing I got that just came in the mail today was another person I follow on Twitter, and I don't know how I started following him on Twitter. It just seems to happen as I follow comic book people. More comic book people show up. And I try to mostly follow comic book fans, but I like it when I end up following these people doing fanish or other kinds of interesting projects on Twitter that are not mainstream comics. So I've been following Pete Doree, and he has been doing a comic series. He has 4 planned, according to his website, but 2 have been published physically so far, about the adventures of Stan and Jack. I haven't read these. I just got them in the mail today. I think they're like fictionalized adventures of these characters. They're in black and white. Feels more fanish, that at least at first glance, than the but I can't tell you what the writing is like yet, than these odd, I call them odd but in a loving way. They're odd that they're so 100% a flashback to the Bronze Age, the Gold Age via the Bronze Age. I don't know, it's really cool. So yeah, I'm very excited about these, and I hope that they somehow make some money. I mean, if it's a print on demand, you make very little money, and that they reach an audience, because I think if this was sitting in a comic book store, it would be great for some 10-year-old, 11-year-old to discover. And we need comics like that. But anyway, I'm super. I'll let you know more about Stan and Jack. And maybe I'll give you a more in-depth look at these if I have the time, of the Atomic Pulp. And I'll definitely link to all of these guys down below. Another thing that happened kind of on the sour note too, that makes me worried about comics right now is, the distributors screw up all the time. And because of the way publishing works now, publishers don't publish that many extra copies of things. So you can kind of worry that, I might not be able to get this comic, at least in the physical floppy form that I wanted. I've had these problems with speculators buying out comics before I get to them because I didn't have them on my pull. Because my comic store would never not give me something I had on my pull. But in a kind of reverse of that, a number of weeks ago, I came into the shop and he said, well, I've only got your DC comics because my Diamond shipment never came. And when I called Diamond, they said, we've lost it. We're going to have to do a whole new order for you and ship them out in a few weeks. And my shop owner said to me, maybe not thinking of what the consequences of it would be, I don't even know if we'll get everything because some of them may be sold out by then. They may be out of stock on them. So who knows what we'll get in a few weeks when we get your comics from this week. And I had just gotten back into doing my weekly countdown. So I since I didn't know if I would even really get the comics that I had ordered that week that would have come from Diamond, I went to another comic book store and found what I needed. And then, of course, 2 or 3 weeks later, all the back stuff did come in, or at least a lot of it came in from Diamond. I didn't really check to see if some that I had already bought was missing. So now I've rebought a number of things. And I didn't want to... I think if I had honestly told my comic book shop owner, he probably would have reluctantly said, okay, you don't have to buy these. But I didn't want to do that to him because he is very good to me in general. So I think there was a total of 5 comics that I've now bought twice. The Firepower, first 2 issues of Firepower, King of Nowhere, Usagi Yojimbo, and a copy of Undiscovered Country. And it seems like it seems just kind of silly, one, that these distributors make so many mistakes, but also that my comic book shop owner could then not guarantee me that I would get my books. Puts him in a very bad position. And anyway, that's kind of a mess. As you may or may not know, about a week ago I did a video, which not too many people watched, about showing all this art I found from when I was a kid. And this is the one where I realized, looking at it, that I was slavishly copying a few pages of Deathlock the Demolisher and then making it my own character, the Smasher. And I was thinking about it, and why, how come I never tried to make anything original as a kid? And I realized I was not trying to become a comic book artist. I was not trying to publish my own comics. I didn't have that goal in mind. What I was really doing was I was loving comics so much that this, rather than just reread the comics, I would redraw them in a sense. I would reimagine them a little bit just for my own pleasure. And now I guess I do that by talking about them on YouTube. But I had no one to talk about them with at the time. I mean, I did learn a little bit about drawing, and that's been a fun hobby throughout my life since then because of that desire to sort of recreate or relive all the excitement I felt from some comics. So why don't I wrap up? I also bought a few paperback books with enjoyable sort of science fiction pulpy covers on them, and I've been mentioning that I've been extra tuned into the fact that it's all the variations of pulp, dating back to those old pulp adventure magazines like The Shadow and Argosy and Weird Tales and stuff that continues to get, and Doc Savage, etc., that continues to kind of be redone and reformed in our society. And I think of it as both a low art and a high art. Now, the high art world uses the convenient, what we love so much about Pulp is what they put down and use it to separate out the wheat from the chaff, in their own opinion. Anyway, so there's a small but pretty cool used bookstore just 4 blocks from my house, and as things have started to reopen, what the owner of the bookstore has done is you can make a reservation to come do a private browsing. So my family, my wife, my daughter, and myself went and all browsed and just had the shop to ourselves for an hour to browse. And we picked up a lot of books, and amongst them were these, for what I picked out, which was, here's, I forget what the artist on these is. These are Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars books, The Sword of Mars. I thought that cover was very intense. I think I've picked up a few of these before at this shop. There is, I believe, 11 Mars books. It shows 10 on the back here. So maybe there's just 10. And I came in reading Edgar Rice Burroughs a little later, and the covers were different. I think they were by Gray Morrow by then, or someone like that. And this was interesting. E. Doc Smith's The Gray Lensman. I read a few Lensman books as a kid. I don't think I ever read The Gray Lensman. So there were a lot of... this might have been like a second... I'm not sure, a second round of Lensman books. But this was one of the super popular science fiction pulp characters of, I want to say, the mid-30s and beyond. But he was like the biggest author at the time. Yeah, this is showing a 1951 copyright. So perhaps this was way later. So we got, the Skylark series and then the Lensman series. Anyway, that cover appealed to me. Got an exploding world there and a ridiculous spacesuit. And I don't know why this particular one was wrapped in plastic, but it's Sentinels from Space by Eric Frank Russell. I think he was one of the higher level astounding science fiction writers at one point, but it's pretty much forgotten now. But hey, floating head in space looks telepathic or something. And then back to Edgar Rice Burroughs, I got 2 Carson of Venus books. I think that's a Roy Krengle cover. I guess I should look and see if there's a signature or anything. And Roy Krengle was, it doesn't say who. Oh, cover art by Frank Frazetta. That's a Frank Frazetta cover. Wow. I was going to say Roy Krengle was a mentor to Frank Frazetta in cover painting. And this is another Venus book, Pirates of Venus. I would assume that is not a Frank Frazetta cover. Roy Krengle. This is a Roy Krengle cover. And then this one by an author I've never heard of, Professor Jameson's Space Adventure Number 3, Space War by Neil R. Jones. The last Earthman holds the balance of power in a war between machine men. Between machine men. Is that what they mean? Or between machines and men? The Zoromes had found a way to immortality and thereby were able to set out on centuries-long explorations of the entire galaxy. One among the Zoromes was a human, Professor Jameson, last man of Earth, and his adventures make a saga second to none. Never heard of this one at all before. Oh, and this cover is signed by Gray Morrow. So there you have that. Another sleepy vlog in the bin. Hopes of doing short videos gone again. But my last comic book thoughts was relatively short, as pointed out to me by Chaos and Comics, Chris. So maybe I can get some of my videos down to a shorter length. Because YouTube is just so crowded with these long videos, especially all the live videos. I think about doing live videos, but I don't want to do too many of them because they're like pollution. Talk to y'all later.